yours and not necessarily those of News Radio 1040 WHO.
Everybody, Michelson here with you. What we're going to do here this the rest of the day, mostly open line time. We are expecting to chat with Senator Rand Paul in a moment or two. And the headline of the newspaper this morning, local newspaper, that is Iowa newspaper, was a bird flu found in the state of Iowa. 5.3 million hens are going to die. Wow. Just trying to get my head around that. And just figure, they must figure. Well, it's not. I'm not sure. I don't think they constitute a danger to humans. I think it has to do with they constitute a danger to other chickens. So they want to get a handle on that. But 5.3 million. My goodness, that's just apparently just one egg-laying facility. I just can't get, just the number is just, I'd love to, sometime, we sit here in the towns, in the cities here in Iowa, and sometimes we're isolated and don't get a real and accurate mental picture of what's going on here in the state. And we have way more pigs here in the Iowa than we have people. And far more chickens than we have pigs and people as well. And we are one of the world's, well, in fact, probably are the world's biggest processor of all these kinds of things. And it happens in our own backyard, and we don't even know about it. I'd love to sometime tour a place like that just to take a look. It's just a stunning thing. What after they do this and destroy them, what do they do with them? Do they recycle them and they grind them up and what? Just trying to get my head around that too. Just the logistics of this are a little bit daunting. Well, anyway, let's talk with Kentucky Senator Rand Paul, who's in the presidential pool. Welcome aboard, sir. How you doing?
Good morning, Jan. Thanks for having me.
You're a busy fellow. You're everywhere.
I tell you, I'm going to be back in Iowa, stomping around and coming to the Faith and Freedom convention this weekend. So which part of that are you advocating, the faith or the freedom part? Because they're always at war with each other. I think that's a great question, actually. Not the first time you've had a great question, but that is a great question because people think that faith and freedom or liberty and virtue are at odds. And really, it is a balance between the two. And I have said, and famous authors have said this too, is you have to have both. And Don Devine was a guy in the Reagan administration who wrote a book called America's Way Back, and there he talks about, the balance of freedom and virtue or liberty and virtue. And Os Guinness also writes about this and says that really freedom requires virtue. And one way to look at it is to think about sort of the American Revolution versus the French Revolution. In America, we did have faith undergirding our laws. We had an 800-year tradition undergirding our laws. So when we had a revolution, we didn't throw everything out. In France, their law and their religion were one thing. So when they threw out the law, they threw out their religion, and they sort of lost, I think, their core, and it wound up in chaos. Same thing still sort of happens in the Middle East, I think. And so I think you have to have both. And so I'm a big believer in virtue, but also a believer that you can't often mandate virtue, that virtue, it's sort of like salvation. I believe in salvation. I believe that I am saved, but I can't force that on anybody. Someone has to accept that individually.
I'm gratified and partly stunned that we're talking with a presidential candidate who's read Os Guinness.
I met him too. I didn't get a chance to talk to him much, but I met him about a month ago, and I used to. From reading him, I think he'd be a fascinated person to actually sit down and have a conversation with.
I've been able to chat with him several times on the air about his books, and he was here in Iowa at the prayer breakfast just a couple of weeks ago. A very inspirational fellow. But getting to the politics here, you have had a couple of one-liners delivered regarding Hillary Clinton. About her recent, about potential future travel plans. Let me set you that up so you can repeat that for us.
I just said that she's probably going to need 2 planes to travel on, one for her entourage and the second plane for all of her baggage. I thought that was kind of funny. Some people on the Democrat side thought I was being too mean to her.
Well, yeah, because they're only into carry-ons.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, she was asked about some of this, and this is kind of an extensive quote, but she's just serving it up now for you guys, and I'm going to let you, this is the softball, and I'm going to let you hit it.
It is, I think, worth noting that the Republicans seem to be talking only about me. I don't know what they'd talk about if I weren't in the race, but I am in the race, and hopefully we'll get onto the issues, and I look forward to that.
Thank you, answer reporter questions about some of the things that are coming up regarding the play for pay allegations in the latest book, emails back in 2012.
You know, those issues are, in my view, distractions from what this campaign should be about, what I'm going to make this campaign about, and I'll let other people decide what they want to talk about. I'm going to talk about what's happening in the lives of the people of New Hampshire and across America.
Don't you feel a little bit guilty, Senator Rand Paul, about distracting Hillary?
Not so much, Jan. But the thing is, it's kind of funny about that is she says these are distractions, and we're going to get back to talking about the real issues. Well, the Constitution is pretty specific that people in high office aren't supposed to take gifts from foreign countries. And so can you just call it a foundation and then take enormous gifts like $10, $15 million from Saudi Arabia, and that's supposed to get around the rule? So, no, I think that it will be a big issue, and it looks unseemly. I mean, we have constant campaign laws that say you can't take any contributions from non-citizens, from people outside the country. And so now she says, after some criticism, I'm not going to take it from foreign governments, but I'll still take it from the sheiks and the chiefs and the kings that basically are equivalent to government in most of these countries.
Yeah, you've had early access, it sounds like, to Peter Schweizer's book, Clinton Cash. And without just revealing it, because the book isn't even out yet, it must have impressed you. It's already being panned, of course, by the other side. And they say, it's just a collection of conspiracy theories and lies. And the book isn't even out yet. They haven't even read it. They're already labeling it as filled with information that's false. So you read it, at least had access to some of it. What is your assessment?
I haven't had a chance to read it. I haven't gotten a copy of it. I just got a briefing about it. But from the briefing, I can tell that it's going to be meticulously fact-checked and meticulously detailed, and there's going to be an enormous amount of information that connects donors to the Clinton Foundation with basically deals that had to be approved by the Secretary of State. So there's a lot coming out, and this is just the very tip of the iceberg. And I think the collection of it, this plus the emails, plus her lack of defense of Benghazi, I cannot imagine really. I know she's so far ahead in the Democrat primary, but I can't imagine that she'll be their nominee. I just can't imagine how they could overcome all of these obstacles.
It is speculated that's what the emails, the server disappearance, or the wiped hard drives were not about Benghazi nearly as much as all these deals with and money deals with foreign entities. Do you think that's a more valid theory?
I think it could be a whole host of things. I mean, she said, these are emails with her husband, and then her husband said he's only sent 2 emails in the last decade, so apparently that wasn't true. She said she didn't want to carry 2 phones, but a week before that said, I have 2 phones, a BlackBerry and an iPhone. We've got her pictured on there, doing emails during the trip to Libya. Those have been subpoenaed, and they seem not to exist. So I think just the collection of all of this, the appearance is that the Clintons think they're above the law. And I don't know. I think ultimately Americans are going to sour on a family that has enriched themselves at the public trough. They've used their time in government. They've used their service in government to greatly enrich themselves to the tune of hundreds of thousands of dollars an hour. That was the one thing that's revealed in the book and was revealed in the New York Times this week, was that when she became Secretary of State, somehow, just coincidentally, I guess, his speaking fees went from about $100,000 a speech to $500,000 a speech. And while she was Secretary of State, I think he gave 13 speeches for $500,000 apiece. And that to me looks like someone just enriching themselves on their public service.
Drastic change of subject. Are you familiar with the Trans-Pacific Partnership Agreement, the fast-tracked trading authority that I think you guys are going to have to look at and improve?
Most of the details are not available to us, so I'm only very peripherally aware of it. Okay,
so let me bounce a sound bite off. This is Dick Morris. I hesitate to refine this. Sometimes not the most reliable source. Let's put it this way. However, he was in the middle of an interview. Apparently, he's taken this apart, and he thinks contained in this trade agreement contains a little pill, and I'm going to let him explain it.
I don't think that people understand that in this deal, which is a trade agreement among Australia, Malaysia, Vietnam, South Korea, Japan, Canada, United States, Mexico, Peru, and Chile, there is a provision for free flow of workers, just like in the European Union. What that means is unrestricted immigration. It means literally that Congress would not have the authority to restrict immigration because a treaty supersedes a statute under our Constitution. This deal, under the guise of a trade agreement, saying, oh, it's another NAFTA. Well, the left opposes NAFTA, but I supported it, and I still do. But the point is that under the guise of NAFTA, it's providing for unrestricted immigration within these 11 countries, which means any Mexican can come to the United States legally, stay here, be naturalized, become a citizen, and vote.
All right. If that is true, that seems to be pretty outrageous, does it not?
If it's true, it is alarming. And, the one thing I don't like about this process is that it seems to be mostly done without any of our knowledge and then gets shipped over and won't be amended. So I don't really like the process of how it occurs. They claim it's the only way you can get any trade treaties done, but it's a little, it's worrisome how secretive it is. And I'm going to have my office check into that. I heard that news yesterday also. And I'm going to have my office check into and see how much of the agreement is actually available. Yeah. Because when I've asked in the past to look at the agreement, they said there is no agreement.
Well, and the second part of what he said, when he talks about treaties, removing Congress and removing their authority to decide on these things, I would like to challenge that as absolutely baloney, bull hockey, and every other insult you could heap on that. However, since a guy as high profile as Dick Morris thinks that treaties usurp the Constitution, that revives a half-century-old debate on the powers of treaties, and if they indeed amend the Constitution. During the Eisenhower administration, John Foster Dulles literally told the Bar Association you can even amend the Bill of Rights using treaty powers. And that so incensed people at that time in the U.S. Senate, including a Senator Bricker, who said that is outrageous. Treaties don't do that, can't do that. And in order to provide that even historically illiterate Congress succumbs to that logic, we want to introduce an amendment to the Constitution that reasserts that there is no provision of any treaty that is in conflict with the Constitution will have be any force at all. And that Bricker Amendment almost got enough votes to pass, so it would have been added to the Constitution. I'm thinking, Senator Paul, it's time to revisit the Bricker Amendment. We call it the Rand Paul Amendment, so we can nail down forever that trade agreements and treaties cannot rewrite American law or usurp American constitutional authority or take away powers from you guys.
Yeah, I would think that would be obvious that you can't give up powers through a treaty. I look at a treaty as being more like legislation between countries, but that is approved by Congress. It's more statute than it is an actual changing the Constitution.
Well, it wasn't obvious to Dick Morris.
Yeah, well, do you know if it's ever been gone to the Supreme Court? Have we ever had a treaty that they said did contravene and was found to be unconstitutional?
No, because I don't think so. is a short answer. But the people in the 50s were so outraged that the Bricker Amendment started. That process, the very process, educated that whole generation of Americans so nobody tried it again until that generation was gone. Now they're trying it again, and if you got alleged conservatives like Dick Morris saying that that a treaty amends the Constitution and removes congressional jurisdiction, it's time to revisit that issue and start kicking some shins.
Yeah, we're going to look into this with the immigration thing because I've been very, very skeptical of UN treaties and international organizations and giving up our sovereignty. So if we get some information on this, we'll send it to you, or I'll come back on and talk about it. But I'm going to have my staff look into that starting today and see if they can get to the bottom of it.
One last question here, and I'm getting deluged by listeners. I get email on this every day, and I'm not up to entire speed on this. It's called the Jade Helm military maneuvers that are going on in the Southwest this summer. You have military exercises that involve civilian areas. Are you up to speed on that? Do you know what this is all about?
I've gotten a few questions on it on the road, and I really don't. I'm not sure about exactly what is going on with that.
It's making some people nervous, but it doesn't take much to make people nervous nowadays. So if you get a chance to, I'd like to know what the rest of the story is on that.
We'll look at that also.
Okay. I'm giving you a lot of work here, and I'm sorry.
Yeah, really. It's like you don't even live in my state, Jan, and I'm having to do all your casework now for you.
Anything else you'd like to add before you get back to work?
Nope. We're just excited to be back there this weekend, and I've spoken to the Faith and Freedom event before, and I will talk a little bit about what I just mentioned, that, how freedom and virtue basically complement each other, and that there needs to be a synthesis or a fusion between the two, and that one without the other isn't the system we want.
Senator Rand Paul, thank you for joining us this morning, sir. Appreciate it.